I recorded 23 seconds of clear video showing a Bigfoot speaking 5 words to me in perfect English, and then I deleted it. 3 audio experts confirmed it was real, a hunting group tracked down the location within 48 hours, and I had to make a choice that still haunts me. But here's what nobody's asking. If they can speak our language, have they been listening to us this whole time? The video is 23 seconds long. You can hear him say 5 words in perfect English. I've had it analyzed by 3 different audio experts. None of them can explain it. My name is Marcus. I'm 41 years old and I take pictures of animals for a living. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've seen bears up close. I've watched wolves hunt. I've spent nights in my truck while mountain lions walk past my windows. I'm not the kind of person who jumps at shadows or believes in monsters. My ex-wife used to say I was too logical for my own good. She was probably right. I live alone now in a small house outside Portland, Oregon. Most of my time is spent in the woods with my cameras. In October of 2023, I drove out to the Cascade foothills to photograph elk. Every fall they migrate through this area, and it's one of the best times to get good shots. I packed my truck with a week's worth of supplies: tent, sleeping bag, food that doesn't need cooking, and all my camera gear. The spot I picked was about 2 hours from the nearest town. No cell service, no other campers, just me in the trees and whatever animals came through. The first day felt normal. I set up my tent in a clearing near a stream. The water was cold and clear. I could hear it running over rocks all night. In the morning, I made instant coffee on my camp stove and headed out with my cameras. I spent most of the day sitting quietly near a meadow where I knew the elk would pass through. Got some decent shots of a big bull with his herd. When I came back to camp around sunset, I noticed something odd. My gear was moved, not thrown around like a bear had gotten into it, not scattered like raccoons had been digging. It was stacked. My extra camera bag was on top of my cooler. My tripod was leaning against a tree in a way I never would have left it. My folding chair was closed up and set neatly by the tent door. I stood there for a minute just staring. I'm careful about my campsite. I know how I leave things. This wasn't how I left it. I checked the cooler. Nothing was taken. I checked my bags. Everything was still there. I told myself maybe I was more tired than I thought when I left that morning. Maybe I had organized things and forgot. But that feeling in my gut said otherwise. Something had been in my camp while I was gone. Something with hands. That night I didn't sleep well. Every little sound made me open my eyes. The wind in the branches. An owl calling. The stream moving over stones. Normal forest sounds that suddenly felt like they were hiding something else. The second day I stayed closer to camp. I took some shots of birds and squirrels. Nothing special, just keeping busy. Around noon I was cleaning my camera lens when I heard it. Whistling. Not a bird whistle. Birds have patterns you can recognize after a while. This was different. It sounded like someone trying to get attention. 3 short whistles, then a pause. Then 3 more. I stood up and looked toward the tree line. The whistling stopped. I waited. Nothing. Just wind and leaves. I tried to whistle back. I'm not good at whistling, but I did my best. 3 short ones like I'd heard. For a minute, there was only silence. Then from deeper in the woods, I heard it again. 3 whistles, like an answer. My skin went cold, even though the sun was warm on my face. I grabbed my camera and walked toward the sound. After about 50 steps into the trees, I stopped. It was darker in there, quieter. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I turned around and went back to camp. The third morning changed everything. I woke up early when the air was still gray and cold. There was frost on everything. My tent was covered in tiny ice crystals that caught the early light. I unzipped the door and stepped out. That's when I saw my truck. There was a handprint on the hood. Not a small one. The print was pressed into the frost, clear as anything. I walked over slowly. My breath made clouds in the cold air. The hand was huge. From the bottom of the palm to the tip of the longest finger was at least 14 inches. Maybe more. My own hand is about 7 inches. This was double that. The fingers were thick. You could see every detail. The lines in the palm, the shape of each fingertip. It was pressed down hard enough that the metal underneath was visible where the frost had melted. I put my hand next to it. Mine looked like a child's hand next to it. I've been in these woods for 20 years. I've seen bear tracks bigger than dinner plates. I've found claw marks on trees 8 feet high. But this was different. This was a hand, with a thumb, with fingers that spread out like a person's hand spreads. I took pictures of it before the sun came up and melted it away. Then I just stood there looking at my truck, looking at the trees, trying to make sense of it. That's when I knew something was out here. Something that walked on 2 legs, something that stacked in gear and whistled and left prints like a person but bigger, stronger. I should have packed up right then. I should have driven home, but I didn't. I stayed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. All I know is I made coffee and sat in my camp chair and waited to see what would happen next. The 4th morning started like the others. I woke up when the sky was still more dark than light. My sleeping bag was damp from the cold. I made coffee and ate a granola bar standing up. The elk herd I'd been tracking was moving through the area, and I wanted to catch them at first light. That's when you get the best shots. The sun comes up behind them and makes their breath look like smoke in the cold air. I grabbed my best camera and walked to the meadow. It took about 15 minutes from my camp. The grass was tall and brown and wet with dew. I found my usual spot at the edge where the trees meet the open ground. I set up my tripod and attached the camera. Then I sat down on the cold ground and waited. This is most of what wildlife photography is. Waiting, being quiet, letting the world forget you're there. The elk came just after sunrise. I counted 9 of them, cows mostly with 1 young bull. I started shooting. The click of the camera shutter was the only sound I made. They grazed and moved slowly across the meadow. I was getting good footage, clear shots, the kind magazines pay for. I was focused on a cow with her calf when I heard it. A branch snap, loud and close, maybe 40 feet behind me. My first thought was bear. We have black bears all through these mountains. They're usually not a problem if you don't surprise them. I stayed very still. The elk heard it too. Their heads came up, ears forward. They were looking past me into the trees. Then they ran. All of them at once just bolted across the meadow and disappeared into the far tree line. I slowly reached for my camera. It was still recording. I lifted it off the tripod and turned around. My hands were shaking a little. I pointed the lens toward where the sound came from. For a few seconds, I just saw trees and shadows. Then he stepped out. He was huge, taller than any person I'd ever seen. Maybe 8 feet, maybe more. His whole body was covered in dark brown hair. Not fur like a bear. Hair. Longer on his head and shoulders. His arms hung down past his knees. His chest was broad and thick. I could see muscles moving under the hair when he breathed. His face was flat, not like a monkey, more like a person's face but wider, heavier. His eyes were dark and they were looking right at me. My camera was still recording. I could hear it running. The little red light was on. My hands were shaking so bad the image was probably bouncing all over. But I couldn't move. I couldn't run. I couldn't even breathe right. We just stared at each other. The distance between us was about as long as a school bus, close enough that I could see details. The gray in the hair around his face, the way his nostrils moved when he breathed, the size of his hands. Then he raised one hand, palm out, fingers spread, not reaching for me, not making a fist, just held up between us like a crossing guard stopping traffic, like he was saying, wait, or stop, or something. I don't know. My brain wasn't working right. Nothing about this made sense. His mouth opened. I saw teeth, big and square and white. And then he spoke. The voice was deep, deeper than any human voice. But the words were clear. Perfect. He said, please. He said, don't be afraid of me. 5 words, each one pronounced carefully, like someone speaking a language they wanted to make sure you understood. My legs gave out. I didn't choose to kneel. My body just went down. The camera fell into my lap but kept recording. I could feel the cold ground through my jeans. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. He took one step back. Just one. His foot made almost no sound on the ground. Then he turned sideways and walked into the trees. Not running, not crashing through branches, just walking. In 3 seconds, he was gone, like he'd never been there. I stayed on my knees. I don't know for how long. The sun came up higher. The shadows changed. Birds started singing again. Normal sounds coming back. My camera was still in my lap, still recording. I finally reached down and turned it off. My fingers felt numb and clumsy. I tried to stand, but my legs were shaking too hard, so I just sat there on the cold ground. After a while, I could think again. I played back the footage right there on the camera's little screen. It was all there. Him stepping out, the hand raised, his mouth moving. I turned the volume up as high as it would go and played it again. Please, don't be afraid of me. The voice was so deep, it made the tiny speaker buzz. But the words were clear. I've been in the woods my whole adult life. I've heard elk bugle during mating season. I've heard coyotes scream like women in the night. I've heard mountain lions cough and grunt. I know animal sounds. This wasn't that. This was English. Real English. With grammar, with meaning, with something else too. Something in the tone. It sounded like he meant it. Like he actually didn't want me to be scared. I sat in that meadow for over an hour, just sitting, holding my camera, trying to understand what happened. The footage timestamp said the whole encounter was 23 seconds, from when he stepped out to when he disappeared. 23 seconds that changed everything I thought I knew about what lives in these mountains. When I finally stood up, my legs felt weak. I walked back to camp, moving slowly. Everything looked different now. The trees seemed taller. The shadows seemed darker. I packed up my gear with shaking hands. I didn't stay for the rest of the week. I couldn't. I threw everything in my truck and drove home. The whole 2 hours I kept seeing his face, kept hearing those 5 words. Please don't be afraid of me. I drove straight to my ex-wife's house. It was late afternoon when I pulled up. My hands were still shaking. I hadn't eaten since that granola bar in the morning. Rachel came to the door in sweatpants and an old college shirt. She teaches languages at the university. We've been divorced for 3 years, but we're still friends, mostly. She took one look at my face and let me in. I need you to listen to something, I said. She made tea. I don't even like tea, but I held the cup because my hands needed something to do. We sat at her kitchen table, the same table we used to eat breakfast at when we were married. I pulled out my camera and turned it on. I played the video without saying anything first. She watched the small screen. Her face didn't change until the voice came through the speaker. Then her mouth opened a little. She looked at me. Play it again, she said. I played it 3 more times. She leaned in close, put her ear right next to the speaker. When it finished, the last time she sat back in her chair. Her tea was getting cold. Marcus, she said slowly, that's not mimicry. Parrots can mimic. Some birds can copy sounds. But this is different. This is language comprehension. She pointed at the camera. He used please. That's a polite form. He used don't. That's a contraction. He structured a sentence with a subject and a verb and an object. Her voice got higher. Do you understand what this means? This isn't just sounds. This is thought. This is communication. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe. I don't want you missing out on tomorrow's new Bigfoot story. Thanks for watching. Is it real? I asked. Could someone fake this? She shook her head. I'd need to run it through proper software to be completely sure. But Marcus, I've studied language for 15 years. I've heard every kind of voice manipulation and AI generation. The depth of that voice, the way the words have that careful pronunciation. If this is fake, it's the best I've ever seen. She looked at me hard. Where did you get this? I told her everything. The camp, the stacked gear, the whistling, the handprint, the meadow. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You can't show this to anyone else, she finally said. I already planned to show it to Mike, I said. Mike worked as a sound engineer at a recording studio downtown. He owed me a favor from when I shot his wedding for free. Rachel nodded slowly. Just Mike. No one else. Not yet. Mike met me at his studio that night. It was in an old building near the river. Inside it was all dark walls and foam padding and equipment with blinking lights. He loaded my video file onto his computer, put on expensive headphones, watched and listened 5 times without saying anything. Then he started pulling up programs, windows full of sound waves and colored bars and numbers I didn't understand. He worked for almost an hour. I sat on a couch in the corner and waited. Finally, he took off the headphones. "Come look at this," he said. I stood behind his chair. He pointed at the screen. "See this? This is the voice isolated from background noise. No artifacts. No signs of editing. No digital splicing. The frequency is lower than normal human range, but it's organic. Real vocal cords. Real breath." He played it again. "Just the voice without the video. Please, don't be afraid of me." It made my skin go cold, even in that warm room. "Could someone fake it?" I asked. Mike rubbed his face. "Could they?" "Maybe. Would it be hard?" "Very. You'd need professional equipment. You'd need to hide speakers in the forest. You'd need to sync it perfectly with the video. And you'd need a reason to fake something this weird." He looked at me. "Did you fake this?" "No," I said. He nodded. "Then I don't know what to tell you, man. This is real. Whatever that thing is, it really said those words. I made them both promise not to tell anyone. But Rachel told one colleague. Mike told his girlfriend. People talk. Within a week, 5 other people knew. Within 2 weeks, I started getting messages. A researcher from some cryptozoology group in California emailed me. Said he'd heard I had interesting footage. Offered me $50,000 for it. No questions asked. I didn't reply. Then a documentary crew reached out. Said they wanted to do a whole series. Follow me back to the location. Set up cameras. Offer me a producer credit and a percentage. I deleted the email, but they kept writing. Called my phone, left voicemails. I had to change my number. Someone posted something vague on a Bigfoot forum. Didn't use my name, but mentioned Oregon in October and a photographer. That's all it took. My inbox exploded. Hundreds of messages. People wanting to know where. People wanting copies. People calling me a liar. People begging me to share it. I stopped checking email. The worst message came on a Tuesday morning. It was from an account with no profile picture. Just a blank gray circle. The message said, "We've been tracking reports in the Cascade foothills. Your location has been triangulated based on the background terrain in the stills that leaked. Our group is heading out this weekend. Finally going to bag one. Thanks for the tip." I read it 3 times. Leaked stills. Someone had screenshots. Someone had been sharing them. And now people with guns were going back to that meadow, back to where he was. I felt sick. I opened the video again on my computer, watched it in my dark office. The way he raised his hand, the way he said, "Please," the way he said, "Don't be afraid of me." Those aren't sounds a wild animal makes. Animals growl. They roar. They hiss. They warn you away. They don't ask politely. They don't tell you not to be scared. Only something that understands fear does that. Only something that feels it too. I thought about that morning at camp, the handprint on my truck. He could have done anything while I slept. Could have torn open my tent. Could have hurt me. Instead, he touched my truck and left. Instead, he stacked my cameras. Instead, he whistled to let me know he was there. He was trying to communicate before I ever saw him. He was trying not to scare me. I had proof in my hands that would change everything. Proof that would get me on every news channel. Proof that would make me famous and rich. Proof that scientists would study for decades. But I also had a target, a map, a trail that led right to him, and people were already following it. I drove back to the mountains 3 days later. This time I didn't bring my cameras. I brought other things instead. I stopped at a bookstore and bought field guides. Birds, plants, mammals, books with pictures and simple words. I bought a solar-powered radio, the kind that works without batteries or electricity. I bought dried food that wouldn't go bad. Jerky, nuts, dried fruit. I stopped at a pharmacy and got a first aid kit, bandages, pain medicine, antibiotic cream. I didn't know if any of it would help. I just knew I had to try. The drive took 2 hours, the same roads, the same trees. But everything felt different now. I wasn't going to take pictures. I wasn't going to watch and wait. I was going to say something I should have said in that meadow. I was going to apologize. I parked my truck in the same spot as before. The air was colder now. November was coming. I could smell rain in the clouds. I loaded everything into my backpack. It was heavy. My shoulders hurt after 5 minutes of walking. I didn't care. I followed the path to the meadow. The grass was even browner than before. Some of it was flattened where the elk had bedded down. I walked to the edge where the trees started, the same spot where he had stepped out. I set the backpack down gently, unzipped it, started taking things out one by one. I placed the field guides in a stack on a flat rock, put the solar radio next to them, arranged the bags of food around them, set the first aid kit on top. It looked like a small altar, an offering. I stood back and looked at it. My breath made clouds in the cold air. Then I turned toward the trees. "I know you're there," I said. My voice sounded too loud, too human. I could hear it echo a little off the tree trunks. "I'm not bringing anyone back, I promise. I'm sorry I pointed that camera at you. I didn't know, I didn't understand." I stopped, tried to think of what else to say. "Thank you for not hurting me. Thank you for trying to talk. I'm sorry people are coming. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them." I waited. The wind moved through the branches. A bird called somewhere far away. Nothing else, just forest sounds. I stood there for 10 minutes, maybe longer. My feet got cold. My nose started running. I was about to turn and leave when I heard it. From deep in the trees, so deep, I couldn't see anything but shadows and trunks. One word, spoken in that same deep voice. "Thank you." Just those 2 words, clear as anything. Then silence again. I felt something break open in my chest. Not sadness, Zikong. Not relief, something else. Something that felt like the end of something important. I nodded even though I don't think he could see me. Then I walked back to my truck. I didn't look back. I didn't wait for anything else. I just left. When I got home, I sat at my computer, opened the folder where the video file was saved. It was labeled Meadow Okai 2023. The file size was 47 megabytes. 23 seconds that could change the world. I stared at it for a long time. Then I dragged it to the trash. The computer asked if I was sure. I clicked yes. Then I emptied the trash. The file disappeared. Gone. I checked my camera, deleted it from there too. Checked my phone backup, my cloud storage, every place I might have saved it. I deleted everything. The only copies left were in my memory, in Rachel's memory, in Mike's. But those couldn't hurt him. Some people call me a coward now. The story got out somehow, just pieces of it. People know I claim to have footage. People know I won't show it. They say I made it up for attention. They say I'm lying. They say if it was real, I would share it. Others say I'm a fraud, say I never had anything, say the whole story is made up. Both of those things are easier for them than the truth. The truth is I had proof, real proof, the kind scientists dream about, the kind that would have put my name in history books, the kind that would have made me rich and famous, network interviews, book deals, speaking tours, all of it. And I deleted it. I threw it away because proof has a cost, and the cost was his life. He trusted me enough to speak. That's what keeps me up at night. Not the video, not the fame I gave up, the trust. He could have stayed hidden, could have watched me from the shadows and never shown himself. Instead, he stepped out, raised his hand, asked me not to be afraid. That gift wasn't mine to sell. It wasn't mine to share. It was his to give and mine to protect. I still go into the woods, still take pictures of elk and bears and birds, but I'm more careful now about where I point my lens. I pay attention to what's watching me back. Sometimes late at night when I'm looking through my photos, I'll see something in the background, a shadow that might be a tree, a shape that might be a boulder, but might be something else, someone else. I never zoom in. I never try to get a better look. I just keep scrolling. Last month, I went back to that meadow one more time. The supplies were gone. The rock where I left them was empty. But next to it was a stack of 3 stones, balanced carefully on top of each other, the kind of thing that takes patience and steady hands. I stood there looking at it for a while, Then I walked back to my truck and drove home. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, deleting the video, giving up everything it could have brought me. The answer is no, not for a second. Because somewhere in those mountains, there's someone who said, please, who said, don't be afraid, who said, thank you. And he's still there, still safe, still free. That matters more than proof. That matters more than anything.